we're up to now in our experiment is the second part, which is where we're going to titrate the hydrochloric acid against our sodium carbonate standard. Okay, so this now we know exactly what the concentration is. Okay, so we're going to put 20 ml of this into a conical flask, and I'm going to show you the pipetting technique now, and then we're going to titrate that with the hydrochloric acid in here, and then we're going to work out the concentration of hydrochloric acid, which is our secondary standard. So, procedure, okay, for pipetting is as follows. First thing, the flask, now although these flasks look nice and clean, we're going to rinse them out with water, because that's the sort of protocol that we're going to use. We're going to follow that through. So we're always rinsing with distilled water. Doesn't matter if there's any water in here, okay, at the time that we do the pipetting, provided it's just distilled water. Because we're going to deliver exactly, in this case, 20 mils, exactly 20 mils of the sodium carbonate to that conical flask to do my initial titration. Alright, so this is my standard. Now, theoretically, this is going to be clean, okay, but again, what I would probably do is to make sure that this, if you were going to be really pedantic, I would make sure that that was actually rinsed with the solution that's going to go into it. Okay, so one rinse for that is plenty. We'll put enough sodium carbonate in here, and we don't want to use too much, 50 to 100 mils or so. And we can put that over to one side, and now comes the hard part. Actually pipetting. This is called a pipette filler. When I was taught this at school, we used to use our mouth right over the end, and that's deemed to be a little bit unhygienic. Alright, so we can't use our mouth anymore to pipette all sorts of toxic chemicals. We've actually got to use a pipette filler. Process is this. Basically, you don't need to jam the whole thing on all the way, okay? And basically, you'll see now that I try and support it, okay, in the bottom. This will take practice. It'll take a few goes to get it. And it's just basically, if you haven't got a thumb, you'll struggle with this one. But we'll just do that. Okay, you notice that there's also a graduated mark, okay, on the pipette, and I'm going to rinse it, okay, a couple of times with that solution, okay, and I would do this at least twice. Why am I rinsing it with the solution? Any ideas?
So rinse it with the solution. There's no volume of anything else in there, so
it's
exactly
clean.
20 mils of the...
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter, but why would I not rinse it with water and then go back into there? What would I have done? Stuff it?
Would it have a reaction with the solution?
A reaction, right?
Lowers the concentration.
But lowers the concentration. We don't want to do that. This is our standard, okay? So the only thing that goes into my volumetric pipette is going to be the solution that is ultimately going to be delivered from it, okay? So I've done that rinsing once, okay? I would probably end up doing that twice, okay, to be really thorough, but I'm in a hurry here, so we want to try and get this happening. So, again. Now, this is the way that I prefer to do it. You don't have to do it this way. I prefer to use my finger, okay, to get down to the bottom of the meniscus. It's a lot easier. You can try, I'll show you in a minute, if you want to try and use a pipette filler. It's very, very inaccurate, okay? So all I want to do is now, again, I'm lining up to be in line with that mark, graduated mark. It's a lot easier to do it like this. And bottom of the meniscus I'm aiming for. That's exactly right. Okay, so I've got it to the bottom of the meniscus, and now it goes straight into the flask, okay? Now notice I'm going to touch it on the inside of the flask, and we're going to let it drain. Okay? Now that process of draining, if you are reading the textbook, we're supposed to give it 10 to 15 seconds to drain. Okay? And so we're counting in our head 10 to 15 seconds. If you're not really sure you can do this, you can touch it on the inside of the flask, and if it looks like a drip still coming out, obviously it hasn't finished draining, but that's really now done. This volumetric pipette is already graduated for that amount to be left in it. I've seen students do this in the past, just to empty it all out. No, okay? There should be some left in the end of the pipette, okay, every single time that you use it, alright? Other techniques might have you drying the pipette off before you do that. No, I prefer to actually simplify the procedure and go straight into the pipetting. So we've actually got our 20 mils into this now. What I would probably do is I would do 2 or 3 of these at a time, okay, because when we do the titration, which is the next step, we have to make sure that we've got 3 of these ready to go, at least. Alright, now, if you can stop that, Jeremy.